It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. When it rains, it pours, and that was the case for the Titans in a 22-13 loss to the Houston Texans under the rain in Nissan Stadium on Sunday.
It's either you're frustrated or you're not. Disappointed for everybody. For our football team, put a lot into it every week. Try to turn the page and make sure that whether you win or whether you lose, figure out who you got, take care of the keys, understand the keys, try to coach them, teach them, and got off to a bad start, turned the football over, and ran out of time.
Ryan Tannehill threw 4 interceptions. The Titans' punt return team turned it over, and 2 turnover on downs helped snap the Texans' 8-game losing skid and ended a 6-game win streak for the Titans. Now 8-3, they still hold the 1 seed in the AFC with the Ravens hot on their heels at 7-3. Dan Mullen out at Florida, fired in his 4th season after a 4th straight SEC loss, 24-23 in overtime against Mizzou. Mullen was 34-15 coming off of 2020 where Florida won the SEC East. And a good day for Tennessee hoops. The men bounced back from a blowout loss to Villanova Saturday to race past 18th-ranked UNC 89-72 on Sunday. And the Lady Vols with a 74-70 overtime win over 12th-ranked Texas. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody is feeling right, living well, or as much as humanly possible after taking the fattest of L's yesterday to the Houston Texans. If you're a Titans fan, welcome in. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica making all things happen. Reaction Monday. That's the goal. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045. I will tell you everything that I saw and witnessed and all the people that I talked to yesterday at Nissan Stadium. We'll also spend some time on Dan Mullen because he got canned. Speaking of holding L's. But, I mean, I don't even know how to diagnose all of the things that went wrong for the Titans yesterday. I mean, I do. I watched all of it. It was painful. It was gross. It was largely uninteresting. And frankly, I don't think I learned anything, game-changing, for lack of a better term about your football team. Like, I don't think there's anything that I felt before the Texans game differently about afterwards. You know what I mean? I felt that Todd Downing, it was a bad day for him to have a bad day. You need your offensive coordinator to help your quarterback. More than that, I thought Ryan Tannehill was atrocious, utterly atrocious. And I thought that he got precious little help because the players that were out there with him at the end of the game were not anywhere close to the players who he's supposed to be out there with to start the game, and the injuries continue to mount. So how do you kind of diagnose what the hell that was before the Patriots try and do something similar or even worse to you in New England on Thanksgiving weekend? It's a really, really difficult thing to overcome. And, Mike Vrabel, he wasn't pulling any punches yesterday when we met with him in the post-game media availability. Mike Vrabel knows his football team got their asses kicked yesterday, and they're just going to do their best to try and flush it and move on.
Turn the ball over 5 times. You know what I mean? It's like you guys don't, you guys all cover this league. You do. If you don't play well in this league, I don't care who it is, you turn the ball over in this league, you're going to lose. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody believes that. But when you do that, it doesn't matter what the record is. We had 5 turnovers. They had 0. You're going to lose the game 99% of the time.
And you know what? They did. And they fought at the end, and it didn't matter because the quarterback, the wide receivers, the offense really sank them. And frankly, the defense is not blameless in this either. Hell, even Randy missed a kick yesterday. An extra point on the first touchdown that they were able to get on the board. Everything fell apart in a way that I don't know if it feels worse than the Jets game. I really don't. It should, because it's a divisional loss. And also the Colts won yesterday, which I'm sure we'll spend some time on. I think that's what you don't want to happen, even though you've got the series sweep of them already to this point in the season. But I'm looking at this and saying, yeah, Ryan Tannehill was horrific. And I spent a good portion of last week telling you how good he's been. And I don't think that one awful, awful game wipes away all the good that he's done and probably will do. But I will say to you that it's much more concerning when your offense and your offensive coordinator can't find any kind of rhythm. Throw this running back rotation out the door. I don't need to see all three of these guys. Frankly, I don't need to see Adrian Peterson at all. Like, I'm over the fact that we're talking to, a future Hall of Famer in press conferences because the play on the field does not indicate that he should have any kind of a substantial role in this team's running back rotation. And frankly, I don't need a whole lot of Deontay Foreman either after what Dontrell Hilliard did yesterday. Figure it out. Find somebody who's going to be your primary option at running back. Do not allow the defense to adjust as you're trying to figure out exactly how many snaps you need to give each guy or what situations you want to use them in. Figure it out. It's been 3 weeks without Derek. This is far long enough at this point. And I understand McNichols wasn't in there yesterday with a concussion, and I understand that the offensive line, again, was without Nate Davis because of a concussion, and I understand that A.J. Brown and Marcus Johnson didn't finish that game in a way that you had three healthy wide receivers, and one of them is a dude that wasn't good enough to make the active roster as a fourth-round draft pick. Yeah, he had his first touchdown yesterday, but he's also part of the reason why Tannehill was throwing the interceptions, which you could clearly see. I don't know how many people went back and watched the television copy as I did, but you could see Ryan Tannehill communicating to Des Fitzpatrick after the third interception in particular, hey, man, you can't cut that route off that way because otherwise you're going to put me in a bad spot. It doesn't mean that Des Fitzpatrick can't grow from that. It doesn't mean that that wasn't a positive step in the Des Fitzpatrick experience. It does mean that you lost to a team that was coming off 8 straight losses. And that, no matter what excuses, and there are many, that you could make for the Tennessee Titans today, it wasn't good enough. And it can't look like that again. And the reality of the situation is it's probably going to at some point because this team is literally dragging its leg across the finish line to try and get to this bye week next week. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045. I wish that we could just call Keyshawn Johnson today. I have his number. I'm tempted to do that. I'm certain that it would be either blocked or declined. But I would love to see what a real 8-3 team Keyshawn Johnson thinks the Tennessee Titans are today. And my larger point with this is not to poke fun at Titans fans or poke fun at Keyshawn or any of this stuff. Like, I'm not trying to kick you while you're down, but, I mean, were we not realistic about this all week long? I felt like everybody that I interacted with on social media, a lot of people who I talk to when I see a lot of you guys at games, and guys and gals, it's always great to see people out who listen to the show, and we appreciate that very, very much. But it felt like the conversation was about, man, Mac Jones and the Patriots looked really good on Thursday Night Football. How do you think that one's going to go? Like, I don't know, man. I got to see what you're going to do against the Texans. Who's playing? Who's starting at wide receiver? Can you tell me that? I can't tell you that today. I have no idea how long or how much time A.J. Brown's going to miss, but he looked like he got his shoulder crunched, even though it was ruled a chest injury in the game while we were sitting in the press box. I think that it was going to be a matter of time. Not that I'm one of these people who's going to tell you that the Titans were not a real 8-2 team, but it was improbable. It was hugely impressive what they were able to do to rattle off 6 straight wins. Of course, they did themselves such a such a favor to run through that gauntlet the way that they did and come out clean on the other side. And at some point, you were going to stumble. Like nobody, and I'm certain nobody, even the most diehard of Titans fans who listen to 104.5 The Zone all day long, or who follow everything, or who are in every Titans Facebook group that ever existed, not even the most diehard of Titans fans, I feel, were thinking that the Titans were going to run the table the rest of the season. Of course not. That's a ridiculous way to look at this. When it turns out the 2-8 team is a hell of a lot closer to the 8-3 team than you thought they were. And it only makes all the sense in the world. Like, I'm watching Sunday Night Football last night, and the Chargers and the Steelers, before the final result of that game, where the Chargers end up kind of pulling away from Pittsburgh, they both have similar records. And the Chargers look above and beyond so much better than the Pittsburgh Steelers did on Sunday Night Football. And I'm listening to Chris Collinsworth, and all him and Al Michaels can talk about is how the Titans lost to the Texans today. But Chris Collinsworth, after the Chargers win, says he knows definitively that this is a good football team. I don't. I know that the Chargers are fun. I also know that before they were able to beat the Steelers last night, they were on a slide of their own. Even as great as Justin Herbert has looked, and even as Brandon Staley was I think, outside of Cliff Kingsbury, like one of the better Coach of the Year candidates. There is so much reaction happens each and every week off of the results of the NFL games. And much of it is so overly generated, and I include myself as a part of this problem, where you're not actually being realistic about how close these teams are. There are no South Alabamas on the Tennessee schedule where you see the Vols, who are just bigger, faster, stronger than the poor USA Panthers. Is that their mascot, Lucas?
Jaguars.
The poor USA Jaguars. There no such team exists in the NFL, even as the Lions might be 0-9-1. Actually, I think we can all say that they're bad. They're very bad. They're a bad football team. Do you know that Jared Goff, this is a crazy stat from Alan Bell, our buddy from CBS Sportsline. Do you know that Jared Goff's never won a game without Sean McVay? It's a ridiculous stat.
If the Lions had won yesterday, that stat would still be alive. He did not play yesterday. Boyle. And they almost knocked off the Browns in Cleveland.
Speaking of which, Baker Mayfield's cost himself so much money. We'll take your calls when we come back. The question that I have for the audience, those of you who weathered the storm, literally, both on the field and in the stands yesterday, if you were in attendance at Nissan Stadium, and bless the lot of you that stayed throughout the course of that game, I was shocked to see that many people gut it out, especially after they were held scoreless at halftime, which we haven't even talked about yet. What was the worst thing, other than losing, what was the worst thing the Titans did yesterday? 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Dropping, looking. The throw intended for Fitzpatrick is what? Intercepted? It is intercepted. Intercepted by Desmond King, the former Titan, as he takes it away from Fitzpatrick.
That's Mike Keith and Coach Mack just kind of oof in the background. Titans radio. One of Ryan Tannehill's 4 interceptions on the game. What is this music that you're bringing me back to? Are you trying to depress people further?
That is November Rain by the Guns N' Roses.
Oh, dear God. Just twist the knife a little more, buddy. 615-737-1045. What's the worst thing the Titans did yesterday? We have talked a lot about this, and we will continue to talk about this. And, of course, we will pivot to some college football as well, given what's happening in the SEC East with Dan Mullen at some point, because there's really only so many things you can say about this. Let me read you the drives for the Titans yesterday, shall I? Punt, interception, punt, turnover on downs. End of the half, touchdown, turnover on downs, interception, touchdown, though, I mean, I almost want to take that Ferkser touchdown away from them because of how disastrous that almost was. The fumble in the end zone recovery, they made the play. It happens. It counts for 6, but that one was a bit of a cheap shot. Interception, end of game. Here's the thing, and this Koharski put this out. The average starting point for the Titans' drives was at the Houston 41. They squandered so many opportunities. Here's the thing about this football game. I thought that was probably one of the better offensive performances that they've had in the last month. And I include the Colts game in that, when Derrick Henry last played. I thought that they were moving the ball well, because they were. I thought that they looked better on third down, because they did. They converted 40% of their third downs yesterday. The difference, of course, was they won most of the plays in that game. And the defense really didn't help them in the first half. Now, in the second half, they gave them every opportunity humanly possible to try and make sure that the offense had a chance to come back. But the problem was that the plays that they lost were so disastrous, so unspeakably bad, that they didn't have enough to dig themselves out of it. You go back and watch this, and I know there will be a lot of criticisms of Todd Downing, and there are some fair criticisms of Todd Downing. Every time I watch them run the ball on first down for 2 yards or 1.5 yards or 6 inches or whatever it is that they're gaining on first down, I know it's not good. I just bang my head into the console sitting in the press box at Nissan Stadium or wherever we are on the road at this point, because it doesn't work. We're through 11 weeks of the season, and you don't have Derrick Henry anymore. Fix it. Figure it out. And I'm not just yelling at Todd Downing from far away. Like, they understand this too. They get it. But it's just taking too long. You don't have the kind of margin for error that you think you do. Yeah, you've still got a 2-game lead as far as the AFC is concerned, but the Ravens won without Lamar Jackson yesterday. They won without their MVP candidate. The Titans have done so without Derrick Henry, but it can't look like that again. There's so many different ways that this is mind-numbingly stupid, what happened on the football field. And I know that a lot of people, or certainly a lot of people, were chirping at me because I think that Ryan Tannehill is good enough to continue to win football games for this team. And yesterday, I thought he was good enough to win that football game until such time as he threw disastrous interceptions and some of his wide receivers betrayed him on some of the interceptions that he threw. But we asked Taylor Lewan about Ryan Tannehill, where the offense has a day where they're playing better, where they're moving the ball better, and then they just shoot themselves in the foot. Taylor Lewan gave as impassioned a support of Ryan Tannehill as we've heard. And I want you to listen to this clip, and I want you to think about whether it sounds familiar or not. Go ahead, Lucas.
Ryan is 100%. I think Ryan is an outstanding quarterback. And I think if anybody sits here and doesn't believe that, then you guys go out there and do it. You know, Tannehill leads this team. He's done an amazing job. You've seen what happened since he stepped in as a starting quarterback for this team. And I think, I think the way he's going to handle this week, the way he handles himself on a weekly basis, we should all be appreciative of him to be our quarterback on this franchise. I think everybody, these things happen. My week 1 happened. I don't know when it comes to interceptions and stuff, I don't know what the receivers are supposed to do or, if he's going to hit. I don't know any of that. But I do know that Tannehill is going to take 100% of that like he does, like he probably already did, and he's going to work his ass off this week. He's a stud. And I think if anybody thinks differently, you guys don't know ball. So, thank you.
So that's Lewan. And listen, he makes good points as First Take's topic scroll comes up. Are the Titans fraudulent? Ooh, spicy. Embrace debate. 615-737-1045. What's the worst thing the Titans did yesterday? And do you believe them to be legitimate, or do you, as Stephen A. is getting ready to discuss, do you believe them to be frauds? I don't know. But what Taylor Lewan is saying there yesterday about Ryan Tannehill, he's accurate in saying his week 1 did happen against the Arizona Cardinals, right? 3 sacks given up of the 5 total that Chandler Jones had. And since then, and throughout the course of Taylor trying to get his stuff right, he's played better football. Ryan Tannehill will play better football than what we saw yesterday. I don't think one horrific game is a complete and total indictment of what Tannehill has done this season, or the fact that they've won 8 games still against some of the toughest teams in the league, and the fact that they have the easiest remaining strength of schedule at this point. But also, while I understand the points that Taylor's making, you know what that reminded me of? When we had to start asking Taylor about Marcus Mariota. When we had to ask Taylor about Zach Mettenberger. I'm not saying that Tannehill is either of those guys. He's clearly and obviously better. He has won more for the Tennessee Titans than any quarterback since Steve McNair. We know this to be so. But I couldn't help myself listening to his comments in the bowels of Nissan Stadium last night when they brought him to the fence line to talk to us and think, damn, it sounds an awful lot like the cries of support that they were having to give other quarterbacks at what felt like the end. Now, this is not the end. And by the way, A.J. Brown, positive news, left yesterday's game with a chest injury, had negative x-rays on his ribs, according to Ian Rappaport. He'll have more tests today, and those can sometimes show more damage, but promising early returns. So, reason for optimism with A.J. Brown at this point. I think that Tannehill is above average even if yesterday sucked. I think that he has proven that enough. He has bought enough equity with me personally, right? I'm not going to sit here and defend him blindly. I'm not going to rip him wholeheartedly after one disgusting showing. He has earned enough, and I think most of the people in this fan base would agree that he has bought himself a little bit of grace. But again, it can't look like it did yesterday. 615-737-1045. Let's get some phone calls in. People have been waiting patiently. Matthew in Clarksville is up first on 1045 The Zone. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going good.
Hey, I just wanted to touch base on, the things that the Titans did wrong yesterday. A big thing for them was capitalization and, on those short drives, just not getting the ball. And, even field goals, man, if we hit field goals on those short drives, man, we win the game, and like you said, with that fumble touchdown by Ferguson, I mean, a split second that goes the other way, and you don't get that touchdown. And, the 4th and 1 and stuff like that when, we didn't get the ball, across the line. You got 1 yard, inches really, and you can't come up with a play for that. I think a lot of that's on Todd Downing yesterday, man, just not being able to capitalize.
The 4th and 1, thanks for the call, Matthew. The 4th and 1 made so little sense to me. Deontay Foreman is moving the ball. You're finally having success, efficiency on the ground. This is the 31st worst or the 31st best. I don't know. They're the second worst running defense in the sport. And you're ripping Adrian Peterson. You know how long it's been? It felt like it's been an eternity since I've seen Titans fans get on their feet for a run. And it ended up only being the first one that he ripped off. It was 16 yards. He's 36 years old. He's trying out there. He had a 16-yarder, and then he did it again for 12. I'm like, okay, AP, let's see what you got. But then as things started to become more predictable based on the running back that they would insert into the lineup, and when Deontay Foreman is having success and the 4th and 1 play goes to Peterson and it gets just smoked, snuffed out, killed in its tracks, and you turn it over on downs. I mean, if you're counting turnover on downs, they had 7 turnovers yesterday. 7. They haven't had a game where they were -5 as far as turnover differential since when? Can anybody tell me? I tweeted it out last night. It was a week 11 loss with the Jake Locker Titans to the 11-1 at that point. I guess it would have been week 12. To the 11-1 Houston Texans, 24-10 the final score. Jake Locker threw 3 interceptions, lost a fumble. CJ 2K, who was decidedly not CJ 2K by that point in his career, lost a fumble as well. That's the last time that the Titans were -5. You cannot play football that way. And especially when you're taking into account the fact that they turned it over on downs, not once, but twice. The play call, it was a bad day for Tannehill to have a bad day, but coupled with the fact that Todd Downing didn't have a great day either, you get the results that you did. Chuck in West Nashville is up next on 104.5 The Zone, talking Titans. What's up, Chuck?
Buck, I think I can't understand the guy fielding the punt with the ball coming right at him, turning his back and not looking and making sure the ball wouldn't hit him or bounce off of him was one of the dumbest things I seen yesterday. I couldn't believe that he did that.
Yeah, and I mean, I understood what he was doing in real time. It doesn't make it okay. Thanks for the call, Chuck. So what Chuck is talking about is the Chester Rogers. You get a stop. You get a stop late in the game. You're going to be able to get the ball back. Chester Rogers is back there in the rain to field the punt. And the punt goes far enough to where Chester turns, and at that point, he's trying to get the, I don't know if it's the gunner, whomever was screaming down the field to try and get hands on that ball to down it as close to the goal line as humanly possible to make the Titans offense drive. At that point, Chester Rogers turns around and is basically trying to block the Texans player away from the ball so that the ball can roll into the end zone. And what he does is it hits him in the back of the calf, basically. And at that point, I mean, it's as bad a situation as humanly possible because all Tyrod Taylor does. Tyrod Taylor was great yesterday. I mean, but he wasn't that great. Like, the Texans weren't taking shots down the field. They were just paper cutting you to death, and then he would break contain and make plays with his legs. That, if I recall correctly, was the 3 plays, 5 yards, 36 minutes, or 36 seconds, Tyrod Taylor, a 5-yard touchdown run to give them a 19-6 lead, and then basically allow them to cruise until they got the field goal to make it 22-13 at the end of the game. Like, I understood what he was doing in real time. It's just when everything is going, it's Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong yesterday, which is kind of what you said against the Jets, but this one, the optics of it were atrocious. But I'm less mad at Chester if I'm a Titans fan than I am even though Des Fitzpatrick got a touchdown yesterday, I think Des Fitzpatrick may have cost them an opportunity to win that game. Tannehill is not blameless because the first interception that he threw right to the stomach of the linebacker and his intended receiver was A.J. Brown, where he just didn't see him. Just didn't see the linebacker swooping underneath to make the play. Tannehill is, I imagine, public enemy number one today. Todd Downing's probably up there. And the defense in the first half, man, this pass rush, the reason that they've survived this stretch, man, they weren't getting anything. They weren't bothering him at all in the first half. Then they made plays for 4 straight 3-and-outs to try and give the offense opportunities to win that game, and then everything else collapsed the way that it did. I'm not as mad at Chester as I am mad at a lot of other things if I'm a Titans fan today. Maybe you feel differently. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Gary in Nashville who wants to talk about Ryan Tannehill. What's up, Gary?
Hey, Buck, what's up?
Not much, buddy.
Well, did Ryan Tannehill look off to you yesterday with his decisions? Because there was a time late in the game where he rolled out to his right, and he was running, and he had a pretty clear lane, but he threw a pass, and it, got broken up near the goal line.
Yeah, I know the play you're talking about.
So, I mean, do we think maybe some of these hits are having a collective effect on him right now? Or
but Gary, he didn't get hit yesterday. I thought the protection was great. I thought I thought the protection was really, really good yesterday. I know we're not talking about it because it was a loss, but I mean they weren't really bothering him. Was that not your observation?
No, I was there at that game, buddy. Let me tell you, and I had a good poncho, thank God. Ooh. But yeah, he seemed like his decisions were off or something. And like we were talking about, Todd Downing did him no favors. I mean, there were very few rollouts, with a play fake to the left and him going right and hitting a wide open guy, or nothing across the middle that I remember. And that, oh man, the less we say about running up the middle on first down and getting a yard is the better for me.
Thanks for the call, Gary. Yeah, I thought the protection was fine. Listen to Ryan Tannehill, because I think it was Jim Wyatt last night who asked him, what's the frustration level when you lose to a team like this who you probably have no business losing to. Now, I'm sure Jimmy phrased that more diplomatically than I just did. But this was the Titans quarterback last night.
The attitude was good. I think the belief was there. We were moving the ball. The confidence was there. We just felt like we just needed to get a score and we'd be rolling. And like I said, we moved the ball consistently pretty much the whole day, except for a couple drives, and just kept shooting ourselves in the foot. You just have to play cleaner football, taking care of the football, starting with me, and then clean up the details. Where penalties hurt us a couple situations, short yardage situations really hurt us. Where we weren't able to convert those short yardage situations a couple times. So. A lot of things to clean up and look forward to getting back to work.
He was pressing. That's all that it felt like to me late yesterday. The underthrown ball that the Desmond King revenge game, that doesn't feel good. Desmond King hadn't looked good all year long until such time as he plays the Titans. And there you see things kind of spiral. Ryan Tannehill was pressing in the second half. Now, we asked them basically, did you feel like you were pressing? We asked Mike Vrabel that, and basically was, yeah, as things start to get away from you, of course you're going to press a little more, and it can cause you to play out of control. I don't know necessarily that Tannehill was out of control, but you did see things when things started to break down, and he was having to try and force things because whether the receivers weren't running the routes to the specifics that he normally likes them to, or whether, I thought the protection was not an issue yesterday. I thought that the play calling, really outside of first downs, I thought the play calling was doable. You could survive that way. Hell, again, you almost did. The Texans beat you with 190 yards of offense. And they beat you not because of 190 yards of offense, but because they didn't turn the ball over and you did it 5 times. Plus 2 turnovers on downs. When we come back, you'll hear from Jeffrey Simmons because I'm curious to know what people thought of the defense yesterday. You'll hear from Kevin Byard as well. The lines are loaded. We'll get to your phone calls too coming up next. More Titans talk on the other side. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone. That's right. The thrill is gone. One loss in the last 7 games. 6-1 in the last 7. I don't think it should feel this bad, but I feel like Titans fans are really going through it, which is funny because it's not like, I love you guys, but it's not like you're used to winning at this kind of clip, especially so early in the season. And so now one loss to the Texans is the end of the world. Oof. I'm not saying it's not awful. Like, it was awful. I was there. It was ugly before the rain started. And then the rain just sent it all straight into the 7th circle of hell.
I will say Titans talkback after the game with Blaine, Mickey, and Dyson did not have the same skies falling vibe that Cardinals and Jets did. It seemed more measured.
Yeah. But isn't that where we all are with the roster?
Yeah, and it was almost like this is what we do. They'll probably beat the Patriots next week. That kind of felt like the fan reaction from my perspective.
Now, I'm not saying that they'll probably beat the Patriots next week. Like, if you look at what the Patriots are doing in the last couple of weeks and the fact that they could pull even with you as far as wins on the season are concerned if they're able to best you at home in Foxborough. By the way, I'm happy that Ian Rappaport is reporting optimistic news on A.J. Brown because I don't want to go all the way to – I hate Foxborough. I hate going to Foxborough. It's not like Foxborough's in Boston. I think Boston would be lovely for Thanksgiving weekend. Since I'm not going to be able to go home and spend time with my family and all these things, I'm going to be at Titans practices with whomever's left practicing for the Titans. I'm going to fly up to Foxborough and watch who play wide receiver? Me, Lucas, and Mike Miracles, apparently. People are lobbying for their tryouts, for their Vince Papale moment. What, isn't that the name of the Eagles guy?
Yeah.
God. I really do not want to go to Foxborough. If this is the kind, I do because it's my job and I'll go and nobody wants to hear me complain about covering NFL football. But like the idea of traveling that much to see that, especially if it looks anything close to what it looked like yesterday, I'm going to be pissed. Which would of course make for a great Monday show after the Patriots game. But I don't necessarily, I'm not having that experience, right? Where I'm looking at the Texans game and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, it was going to happen. Would you rather it have happened to the Patriots and beaten the Texans? Of course. Because you're a 1-8 team away from clinching, by the way, your 6th consecutive winning season. You could have done that yesterday against the Texans, and this would not have felt nearly as bad. What I'm looking at the Patriots game and saying, all right, they are going to give you a much better fight than what Houston did. And if you make those kind of mistakes against New England, buddy, they're going to Matt Ryan the holy hell out of you. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Ollie, who's in Murfreesboro, wants to weigh in. What's up, Ollie?
Are you there?
I sure am, bud.
Yeah, I'm just so. The only time, I think Mike Vrabel is just not a good coach.
Oh.
He's getting out-coached by everybody.
What? Ollie. What?
The only
what,
games the Titans
on the list of
preseason.
things that went straight to hell yesterday, you think Mike is the biggest issue?
Why you don't attempt a field goal on the first drive?
Because the weather was horrendous.
You knew the rain was coming. It wasn't there yet. And then you try to run a quick offense, you get an offside penalty, and then you punt.
Are you talking about going for it on 4th and 1 instead?
Yeah, they went for it on 4th and 1.
Right.
They got a quick snap penalty, and they got a 5-yard penalty, and then they punted.
That's right.
That was terrible.
Well,
it's
the
a
penalty
0-0
was terrible,
game.
yeah.
The rain's not there yet. The field conditions are good. Your guy's hitting before the snap, and you don't even take a chip shot at the 3-point. Why? Vegas had a first drive field goal attempt at plus 350. Let's not pay our Tennessee bankroll bettors. Nah. You got a -6 on the first half and a money line on the first half.
Wait, Ollie, are you pissed because you lost money yesterday? Ollie.
Hey, I got 4 seats at 145 at Nissan Stadium.
Okay, but are you more upset because you lost money than Mike Vrabel going
the
for a
money
field
doesn't
goal?
matter. When was the last time the Titans covered as a favorite?
I don't care about them covering, Ollie. I don't care at all about them covering.
I understand that, but you're 8-2. You're fraudulent.
Well, listen, and now I don't necessarily think
You got
that's
Derrick Henry throwing a touchdown pass, which isn't
no,
even up
Ollie.
on the
If you'll
book,
slow
and you got
down
him
for a
breaking his
second, I'm
foot the
trying
next
to
week.
agree with you. If you'll let me.
Okay,
Ollie.
bro.
What I'm saying to you is, I think that 8-2 is overrated. I think any good team, any team that's considered good in the NFL right now, I think we're wildly overrating them. I don't just think that's true for the Titans. But go ahead and make your point. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm just saying, you're doing stuff. You're in a different. Mike's coaching from a different hemisphere, a different planet, a different metaverse.
Are we using meta? Thank you
He's
for
getting out coached.
Well, I would respectfully
You
disagree
lose
with
to
you,
the
Ollie,
Jets?
but thank you for the call. 615-737-1045.
He was a betting favorite to win Coach of the Year.
I mean, he was
1 week
literally
ago.
just plus 400 to win Coach of the Year. Like, that's it. I mean, Ollie, I understand that you went to the game, you sat through it in the rain, and on top of that, they cost you money. Like,
Yeah,
I'd
he
be pissed too.
Lost some cash.
I
He's
mean,
upset.
listen, I would be upset. This is why, I mean, ethically, I don't bet Titans games. But I mean, Mike, I thought, here's what I'll say, Ollie, because I did question, and we did question Mike Vrabel last night in the post-game press conference about some of his in-game decisions. Because I don't think that Mike coached a perfect game. That's not what I'm implying at all. I just think that because I mixed up the field goal situation that he was talking about. He's talking about going forward on 4th and 1. They get a penalty. Then they end up having to punt, and it looks really, really bad, right? To start the game that way was unsatisfactory by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll pull up the transcripts from Mike Vrabel last night because we did ask him about why he didn't go for 2 after the first touchdown. Because, of course, Randy, who's been so good, and I don't want to take anything away from Randy Bullock because it's not Randy's fault what happened yesterday, even though he was a little bit a part of the problem. I mean, he straight up just didn't consider going for 2 after the first touchdown. And I really think at the point that they were trailing in the second half, that would have been hugely beneficial for them to attempt that, given the fact that at that point in the third quarter, the conditions were starting to spiral. To Ollie's point, it really didn't start to come down until I think around 12:45, 1 o'clock. But yeah, the penalty kills it. You get that 4th and 1, Ollie. Even though, maybe I shouldn't say that. They didn't get the 4th and 1 because they ran the Adrian Peterson play. But that's not, Mike Vrabel has to approve that call. Todd Downing can't just supersede everybody on 4th and 1 because Mike has to give them the go-ahead, and then they have to put the 4th and 1 play in place, and all of them have to be in line with that. So, again, the execution was poor. I thought the coaching on the whole was not great. I thought the defense failed them in the first half. I thought the offense failed them throughout on multiple levels. But I think if you're looking at issues where Mike Vrabel's probably 6th on the list of things that went to hell yesterday. Let's squeeze. Oh, is it a different Ollie? Or is it the same Ollie? Oh, okay, it's a different Ollie, Lucas tells me. We'll get back to Ollie. Let's go to Anthony in Nashville before we have to run, and then we'll take more of your calls coming up next. We got loaded lines, guys. We're going to get to you, I promise. Let's go to Anthony.
How's it going, guys?
It's going well.
I'm with you. They need to make a decision with the running back. And Adrian Peterson is not part of it because I didn't understand. Okay, you want to go for 4th and 1, fine. But clearly, Adrian Peterson has not the three games he's played has not been able to run up the middle for 1. It's like he put his head in the back of the person in front of him, and they just push him back. They're not pushing people forward. So that's not going to run. That's not going to work. And I've noticed that when they go with a different running back, they see holes that it seems like Adrian Peterson don't see. I don't know if it's because he's just been, off for a while or whatever, but he just don't – it's like he can't find the hole to get open.
I appreciate the call, Anthony. Both Greg Cosell last Wednesday on the podcast and then Teron Davenport, who's as smart of an X's and O's reporter as we have in this market, Teron over at ESPN. We were talking about this on both of the podcasts that I do, the Install with Greg on Wednesdays and then the 615 sessions on Friday with all my Titans media member friends. Both Teron and Greg's assessment of Adrian Peterson is the thing that made Adrian Peterson different outside of just God-given ability is that his vision and reaction in real time set him apart. And that's not there at this point. When we come back, we'll talk about the running back situation. We'll talk about what New England is looking like, and we'll take more of your phone calls. We'll get into some SEC stuff as well. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans turned it over 5 times. Ryan Tannehill threw 4 interceptions as Tennessee fell 22-13 to the Houston Texans under the rain in Nissan Stadium on Sunday.
We put some drives together. We gained yards and just couldn't finish. And again, just felt like we were on our own worst enemy, and we'd get into some drives and then not be able to convert or turn the football over.
The Texans snap an 8-game slide with the win and ends a 6-game win streak for the Titans. Now at 8-3, they still hold the 1 seed in the AFC. The Ravens hot on their heels at 7-3 after defeating Chicago on Sunday. Dan Mullen is out at Florida, fired in his 4th season after a 4th straight SEC loss, 24-23 in overtime against Missouri. Mullen was 34-15, coming off of 2020 where Florida was in the SEC championship. Was a good Sunday for Tennessee hoops. The men bounced back from a blowout loss to Villanova Saturday and raced past 18th-ranked UNC 89-72. Freshman guard Zakai Ziegler led with 18 points off the bench, and the Lady Vols with a 74-70 overtime win over 12th-ranked Texas. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this Monday. Welcome back on 104.5 The Zone, where we're here with you until 1 o'clock. By we, I mean Lucas, myself. We're making it happen for you. We've got 2 great guests coming up this hour, and we'll pivot to some college football with them. Austin Burlage of Power T Tape and Brandon Marcello, who covers the SEC, given that Dan Mullen got canned by Florida yesterday. But in the meantime, we're talking about the Titans. We're talking about the Titans because the 1-8 Texans, now 2-8, were able to get the biggest upset of any divisional game since 1979, according to ESPN. The last time that bad of an opponent beat that good, allegedly, of an opponent was in 1979. It was the 0-6 Bengals defeating the 5-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. Worst team in conference beats best team in conference. It hasn't happened since the 70s. So it doesn't feel good. Now, I've got people arguing with me on Zone TV like ZW, who says that Ryan Tannehill let 4 passes go that he shouldn't have. And listen, he's leading the league in interceptions right now. He's got 1 more touchdown than he does picks. It's really, really not good. And you put that in line with the fumbles that he was being forced into to start the season because the protection was, in fact, bad. He has got 1 more interception than Patrick Mahomes. Now, the Chiefs are playing better, and Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he's got his, okay, so I'll read you the quarterbacks that he's got as many interceptions as. Shall I? Or nobody has as many interceptions as Ryan Tannehill. Let me correct myself. Here are the quarterbacks who are right after him. Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, who has 7 touchdowns against 11 interceptions. Really, really bad stuff.
Gross.
Then there's Joe Burrow, 20 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Matt Ryan is next with 15 touchdowns to 10 picks. Mahomes, though, the difference in the 11 interceptions that Mahomes has, let's play a game, Lucas. How many touchdown passes do you think Patrick Mahomes has thrown for this season against 11 interceptions?
I'm going to say 24.
25 is the correct answer. Alex, 25 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So they're scoring. He's finding the end zone. Tannehill, 13 touchdowns to 12 picks. It's not great, Bob. Now, what's happening with the Titans is more than just Tannehill. What happened yesterday to the Titans was more, frankly, than just offensive inefficiencies and failures. What happened to the Titans yesterday was the fact that a defense coming into yesterday's game that was 7th against the run allowed the Houston Texans to run on them at will at points. Now, it leveled off. They ended up holding them to 2.2 yards per carry throughout the course of that game. They only had 83 rushing yards on 38 attempts, but that's because the defense picked it up in the second half. The first half, they were running the football well. Tyrod Taylor, whatever you want to call him, making plays with his legs, scored 2 touchdowns. But then you have what's happening to the defense in the first half as opposed to what happened in the second half, where your best thing, your front four, minus Bud Dupree, of course, they're not getting any pressure. They did not pressure Tyrod Taylor really at all yesterday. And by the way, T.R. Tart, your starting nose tackle, got carted off in garbage time at the end of that game. It's not great. Now, we told you earlier that there was some positive news from Ian Rappaport on A.J. Brown, that he had x-rays, that it does not appear to be broken ribs. He will have additional tests done today that could discover more damage. But at this point, as we sit here, the results were optimistic. Now, Jeffrey Simmons pressured the quarterback 3 times. Remember, against the L.A. Rams, it was a career-high 10 pressures for Jeff. Danico Autry, 2 pressures. Harold Landry, 1 pressure. Laurel Murchison, 1 pressure. Our buddy Zach Lyons at Football and Other F Words put this out. In a post-Tennessee Tickle Monster world, that damn nickname, the Titans' defensive line had its worst outing, 0 sacks. Much like the 300, which is what Mike Keith wanted to call them, because when you add Harold, Jeff, Autry, and Bud Dupree's numbers together, it equals 300. Much like the 300, they died on the battlefield yesterday. The defense in the first half failed as much as the offense did. You cannot let an opponent like that get confidence. It's absolutely what the Titans allowed yesterday. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Dustin in Laverne, who wants to talk about some missed opportunities. What's up, Dustin?
Hey, what's up, Buck? Hope you're doing well, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I was pretty upset about it yesterday, but, I mean, like you said, in all reality, we're still top of the AFC and, you know, all that good stuff. But the thing that really bothered me the most, and it's not just Vrabel or the Titans, it's really the NFL as a whole. I just don't understand why when you have a chance to get points, especially like a team versus the Texans, like I get it if you're playing – you know, a powerhouse like the Chiefs and you know you need points. But somebody like the Texans, you can chip them away to death. So for me, I mean, if I remember right, we passed up on at least 6 or 9 points of easy field goals we could have gotten. That could have been the difference in the game. And then just I don't feel like it's fair to put so much on Tannehill because we knew going into this game we had a depleted roster and it was not going to be easy. And then the last point I wanted to put in is just remember the Patriots almost lost to this same Texans team if they wouldn't have had pretty much a miracle at the end of the game. So, you know, we're about in the same spot. Don't feel too bad about it, guys.
Thanks for the call, Dustin. Appreciate your patience on the phone lines. Yeah, I mean, here, because I saw, I think it was, and I want to give proper credit to whomever was saying this on Zone TV, Elijah Haynes on Zone TV, who said that you know, are we overrating the Titans? And frankly, as I said earlier, if you were listening, I think we overrate every good team in the NFL, and I think we underrate every bad team in the NFL. I think that all of these teams, I was watching Sunday Night Football, and I got legitimately upset last night because they showed the in the hunt graphic as we get closer and closer to the postseason, and, you know, the on the bubble graphic as we get closer and closer to the postseason. The damn 4-7 Dolphins are on the bubble of the postseason. And everybody above them in the AFC can technically make a push. The Colts at 6-5. The Steelers at, 5-4-1?
Yep.
At this point, all of these teams are basically the same. It's just, you know, a few missed field goals here and there, a missed extra point, you know, a poorly timed interception, and one team ends up 8-3 and the other one ends up, you know, 5-4-1, like you saw with the Steelers. Like everybody is so much closer to the middle ground than you actually think them to be based on their win-loss margin. It's not an accurate representation to say one team, Like you would think the Chargers are the best team in football if you just watched a Chargers game for the first time last night. And it would completely ignore the fact that they've been on a bit of a skid of their own. NFL teams are not as good or as bad as you want them to be based on the optics. And this was something that Jeff Simmons articulated, this is something that Kevin Byard articulated last night because we asked him, I mean, is there any correlation between the Titans losing to teams that they shouldn't, like the Jets and the Texans? And this is something that Kevin Byard had to say.
I think the only thing that's really in relation is that we just didn't play well. I seen an interview earlier this week by Tristan Thompson, so I don't know if y'all seen it, but he was speaking on about, us being professionals, us being all grown men. Like, it shouldn't take another grown man to come in here and try to motivate everybody. Like, we all professional football, this feeds our families. You got to go out there and do your job, and that's all we're supposed to do. We got to do our jobs, and we didn't do our jobs today. So I don't think a pep talk or anything like that is going to get anybody ready to play. We have to go out there and do our job. That's the bottom line. That's what we get paid to do. So,
and that's what happened. Yesterday, they didn't do their job. We'll take more of your phone calls coming up next. You guys are very passionate about the results yesterday, about Mike Vrabel, about Ryan Tannehill, so we'll get to your phone calls. We'll also talk with Austin Burlage of Power T Tape about the Vols and what lies ahead this weekend in rivalry week against Vanderbilt at home. That's coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. Austin Burlage of Power T Tape will join us momentarily. If you guys want to continue the conversation, we've been talking about the Titans all morning long. Tough scene at Nissan Stadium. 22-13, the final against the down bad, less so today, Houston Texans. I was laughing because laughing during the commercial break because one of our favorites, Lebowski, tweeted us and said, well, there it is, 10:51 a.m., and we have our first Vrabel sucks call on the Buck Reising Show. I'm honestly surprised because Mike's pretty polarizing, but I feel like the vast majority of Titans fans are bought in at this point. Like, I understand Ollie lost money, and, I don't think Mike Vrabel was perfect yesterday. Nobody, God, I've been spending too much time at the press conferences because I almost said got to play better, got to coach better.
Got to play better, got to coach better.
And he hasn't really done that much this year.
We got it once.
I've done it more times than Mike Vrabel has, which is great if you're somebody who writes Mike Vrabel quotes for a living like I am. But at this point, there's a lot of things that are being left to be desired, and it's because of more than anything, like here's my biggest takeaway, guys. Like Tannehill sucked yesterday. That everybody understands. The defense did not play well yesterday. The offensive play calling staff, Todd Downing and company, by the way, I think need to figure out the running back rotation as soon as humanly possible. But more than anything, without A.J. Brown, Marcus Johnson, Tier Tart, Chris Jackson, Jackrabbit Jenkins, Bud Dupree, Rashawn Evans, David Long, shall I continue? And those are just the guys who were on the inactive list yesterday or got ruled out throughout the course of the game. I mean, they're just running out of bodies. Just running out of bodies at this point. If the Titans are right, they should beat the Texans, no problem. But that's not the actual Titans team that you think it's supposed to be that we watched on the football field yesterday. How many of you knew who number 40 was in your backfield before he took the first snap? Dontrell Hilliard. Raise your hands, unless you're in your car, 10 and 2. We'll do a visual bit on an audio medium. Raise your hands if you knew who Dontrell Hilliard was before he took the field for the Titans yesterday. I'm going to venture a guess that 60% of you had no idea who the hell number 40 was in two-tone blue. That's where you are right now. And the fact that you had three wide receivers left by the time that game ended. It's just untenable at this point. Let's go to John in West Nashville up next. Hello, John.
Hey, just a few observations. One, a little bit of a pushback on the defense being not at their best.
In the first half, John. I thought they were great in the second half.
Well, I just meant over the whole game.
Sure.
The offense gave up basically a pick six. The special teams, fumbled inside our 10.
Yes.
So, you can arguably say the defense gave up 8 points. And I tell you, the Texans knew coming into that game what our pass rush was like. I thought they did a good job of getting the ball out of their quarterback's hand real fast. And then when it broke down, he would find an alley and run.
Agreed.
So, I think they did well enough for us to win that game. I thought, definitely. Now, in the offense, I thought the play calling was inconsistent at best. I love some of the running plays. But when it's 4th and 1, in previous games, Tannehill would fake to the middle and go around, bootleg around. And I was watching on that play just begging that they would call that. And he had nobody out there. He
did it on a third down, too, or later in the game, didn't he, John? Like, I remember him making a play with his legs, that exact play call. I know exactly the one you're referencing.
Yeah, and it seems to work every time, especially when the whole stadium thinks we're going to run it.
Yeah.
So I just felt like they could have been a little, especially in the rain. You get behind in the rain, you got to do some different things. I wasn't against them trying 4th and 1. I just don't think they ran very innovative plays.
I would not disagree with that at all. Thank you for the call, John. 615-737-1045. This is a stat from my buddy Austin Stanley at A to Z Sports. In the second half, the Titans held the Texans to a total of 7 yards and 0 first downs on their last 6 possessions. Texans had 13 points of 22 off turnovers, only gained 1 total yard on those scores. Without the 5 turnovers, we'd be focusing on another great Titans defensive performance. Again, what I'm saying to you is in the first half, the Titans weren't doing enough to mitigate what the Texans were doing to combat their pass rush. Short passes, running the ball, trying to make sure that they got Tyrod Taylor out on the run and use his legs in red zone situations. It worked really, really well. In the second half, the offense of the Texans was neutered. I don't disagree with any of that by any stretch of the imagination. Let's go to Andrew in Nashville, who's up next on 104.5 The Zone. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I enjoy you all.
Oh, Andrew, your phone line sucks. I'm sorry, buddy, and you were just saying nice things to us. Give us a call back on a better phone line if you could. Let's go to downtown up next on 104.5 The Zone. Sorry about that, Andrew.
Yeah, I think rewatching the game and looking at it, there actually was pretty phenomenal run blocking. It's embarrassing to me that we keep putting Peterson out there and he's completely whiffing on the cutback lanes. And it's like any other ball carrier, and likely we're probably able to sustain some of these drives and probably win the game. It's mind blowing to me to see some of these holes and then see him not actually hit it.
No, I think I'm not sure if you heard the start of the show, and thank you for the call downtown. We'll welcome our buddy Austin Burlage in here in just a second. But I mean, I don't see a fit, and he ended up leading the team in rushing. Honestly, this was Adrian Peterson's best performance as a Titan against the 31st ranked Texans run defense coming into that game. Adrian Peterson had 9 attempts for 40 yards. Dontrell Hilliard, 7 for 35. Deontay Foreman, 7 for 25. Ryan Tannehill was 2 of 3, but did convert a critical third down. I mean, it's just Adrian Peterson had his best success, but there was more meat on the bone, and I feel like the Titans had wasted opportunities because Adrian Peterson isn't able to maximize what they're doing in front of him. I think the line is playing better. Aaron Brewer looked better at right guard than Nate Davis has all season. Make that one make sense. Is Austin Burlage on the line, Lucas? Oh, we're about to bring in Austin. Well, let's go as we wait for Austin. Let's go to Rob in Nashville up next. What's up, Rob?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. First of all, like I've been saying, Tannehill to me, and I'm not just gonna bash him. He's a okay quarterback, but he's a game manager. Okay, I got that out of the way. Now, just knowing, these coaches and knowing what they had to put out on the field, and I've said this earlier, I can't figure out why Tannehill stayed in that game as long as he did, or they even allowed that to go on like that. I mean, you got your starting quarterback who does not even play with the guys that are out there on the field. Why not put your second-string quarterback out there that get the reps with the people out there that don't start? So, to me, I mean, you made Tannehill, Vrabel, or whoever the coach, you made things look worse than what they really were. Now, you pointed out something.
Wait, Rob. I don't mean to interrupt you. Forgive me, but you saying put Logan Woodside out there?
Listen, here's the thing. They already knew that it was a strong possibility that they was not going to win that game. Okay, because Blaine.
The 1-8 Texans. No, Rob. I'm sorry. I have to strongly disagree. What? They were 10-point favorites. Rob, thank you for the call, man. I can't.
Strong possibility they were not going to win the game.
Rob,
take everyone out.
Rob's called the show before, and so I don't want to disrespect Rob, but that to me reminds me of people that wanted them to start Woodside against the Los Angeles Rams after Derrick Henry went down. Like, just why even play the game? What? A strong chance? They knew there was a strong chance they wouldn't win that football game? 10-point favorite is as big a favorite as the Titans have been all season long, yes? I mean, hands down. By the way, I told you on the League Company Countdown to Kickoff, you bet the Texans plus 10 or you're out of your mind because Titans should be favored by 10 points over anybody at this point. Anyway, Burlage has been waiting. I'm sorry. Austin Burlage, our guest of Power T Tape. Let's talk some Vols and let's take our minds off this godforsaken Titans team. What's up, Austin? This sounds like we're talking Vols in a different universe. What the hell is what the hell is this Twilight Zone?
Yeah, certainly years past, but it's good to be a Vols fan today. We're bowl eligible, and our enemies are self-destructing. At least one of our enemies. So that's been really fun, and I think you're probably going to chat about that after me with Marcello, right?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah, the Dan Mullen situation at Florida is on everybody's lips in the world of college football. So, I mean, understanding that the South Alabama Jaguars were not going to pose quite a threat, what, outside of being bowl eligible, and maybe that's all that matters for Tennessee today, outside of being bowl eligible, what did you see them accomplish that you wanted to see them accomplish as a team?
Yeah, it was nice. I think South Alabama is actually probably a little bit better than we made them look like they were an FCS team, but they were 5-5. They still got a chance to be bowl eligible, which with their first year head coach is actually pretty good. They've played some decent teams tough. I thought they could have made it. I think I tweeted that out too. Like they could have made it a little squirrely. And especially early on, I mean, we got up 14-0. They missed a wide open receiver in the end zone. And that could have made it 14-7, and then they Hendon Hooker made a huge play with his feet on a 3rd and 11. Otherwise, that would have been a quick punt back to them. So, there was a chance for them to kind of make some things happen. Obviously, completely not in the athletic category that the Vols are in, which is nice to be able to do that again to a team that you're supposed to do that to. I think, a couple of the thoughts that I had. Obviously, to be able to get reps for some of the younger guys, or not even younger guys, but other guys, was a huge benefit. But it did make me think, and this is not to take a trip to Negative Town, but I think it was nice to get a feel for what you have on the roster looking ahead. And I'm not sure I feel great about it. We think about Hooker, like we talked about last week, potentially entering the draft. And I think we know what the guys behind him are capable of right now. Again, another game without Tyon Evans, and I think we feel good about Jabari Small, but getting the other running backs, Wright had a decent game, but there wasn't a ton of breakaway speed, in my opinion. I thought Warren Burrell got kind of abused by Jalen Tolbert, who was an NFL prospect receiver. So, there's a lot of situations where it was good to get guys reps and see what you have as you look ahead to, recruiting and recruiting never stops, but you get my point. And then potentially transfer portal options, like where are some gaps that you might need to plug looking ahead?
You said something about Hendon Hooker exploring draft potential. Does it not make all the sense in the world for him to stay, and him and Cedric Tillman both, given what this offense is capable of and how much, what is Cedric Tillman at this point, a 7th-round draft pick? Like, I think both of them have the talent to improve their draft stock if that's in fact what they want to do in the future, but I don't think that they can do it based off this season.
I completely agree, and I think, so I did some digging around. I think the Hooker thing makes a little bit more sense because what I have heard is that it's because he's 24, and then the idea of coming back and being, and so I understand that, and this is a relatively weak quarterback class. I wouldn't. If I were advising him, I think if you look at the quarterbacks that have gone to the NFL from this offensive system, the only one that really sticks out to me is Robert Griffin III, and he was like a transcendent college athlete. Which is not taking anything away from Hooker. And he went into a situation in Washington where they kind of changed the offense around him and did a lot of, quarterback read principles, kind of like what Baltimore is doing with Lamar Jackson, which isn't bad, but that's just, you're not like NFL ready per se.
Well, I saw a poor man's version of the Ravens yesterday at Nissan Stadium with Tyrod. I mean, that's what honestly, that's what David Culley built and Nick Caserio built the team to do. So those opportunities exist if you have subpar quarterback play.
Yeah, it is growing, right? Like, I mean, it's not as unheard of as before, but I think too, when you kind of look like he didn't start the year, that's not necessarily his fault, but he hasn't played a full year, been injured. I think when you look at what we ask him to do in the offense, right, a lot of deep shots, a lot of throws outside. I tweeted a pic of South Alabama just unable to get lined up with the tempo. So there's just a lot of things that we do in our offense that make the quarterbacks very successful and efficient that it's just not the same in the NFL. And I think, another year would be beneficial for him. And like you said, Tillman as well. Tillman, if he wanted to leave, I could understand that maybe a little bit more than I could Hooker. But I think, both of them are going to get all the guys get advance notice or like a draft grade basically, and they're able to kind of make their own decision from there. And I think another point to consider would just be the name, image, likeness. In the past, maybe you're not going to get any money for coming back, and now, based off of the success they've had this year, maybe there's an opportunity to make some cash. And obviously not close to probably what you could get in the NFL. But, if you're a 7th round pick versus if you're, the quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers in the Knoxville market, I just wonder what the difference would be financially there.
Austin Burlage is our guest at Austin_Burlage is where you can follow him. We always have Austin on the Monday after Vols games. So Vanderbilt, Mike Wright did a lot better at Ole Miss than I thought he was going to do. And Vandy made it closer than I think Lane Kiffin would have liked, 31-17 the final. Can the Vanderbilt offense at this stage, and I don't mean to laugh at them, even though they are somewhat laughable this year, can they do anything as a 31-point underdog? They can cover, no?
Yeah, 31 is gigantic. And anytime you get a line that big, Tennessee's good. But those lines are usually reserved for the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world playing bottom of the barrel teams. So, I think they're probably good enough to cover. Would be my take. I mean, they played Missouri pretty close, I believe, as well. And Missouri is not nearly as bad now as when Tennessee played them. I mean, they're bowl eligible now. They can cause some problems. I think. What we saw versus South Alabama is just another thing. I mean, when you haven't played this offense before, you kind of come in with this game plan of, okay, this is how we're going to stop it, but it's so hard to replicate it in practice that it's just difficult to stay, in and get in all the things that you want to do defensively, and then Tennessee can rack up a lot of points. But there's just so much that go into it, right? Like, it's senior day. Do you want to send the seniors out? Do they get a big lead and kind of pull the seniors and, that kind of thing? Do they want to rest guys for a bowl now that they're bowl eligible? Like, there's so much that goes into that line at 31. I think Vandy is feisty enough to cover despite not having really much to play for at this point.
A 2:45 Central Time kickoff is disgusting, even for Vanderbilt, Tennessee. But we will find out the results on rivalry weekend, which is always the worst thing in the world for me to say into a microphone. And we will talk about it the following Monday with our buddy Austin Burlage. Austin, thank you for the time as always. And have a great Thanksgiving, bud.
Yeah, you guys too. I appreciate it.
Austin Burlage at Austin_Burlage is where you follow him on the socials. So since we're in the SEC, I know we have what does Jerry and White Bluff want to talk about announcers? For what, the Tennessee game? All right. Oh, for Titans. Okay. We'll come back with Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports because I want to talk about Dan Mullen. Then we'll get back to your Titans calls because I'm interested in what the people have to say. That's up next. I'm Buck Reising, 104.5 The Zone. I was just telling Lucas how much I love ABBA, which is probably, I don't think that's an indictment of me as a person. In fact, I think that's probably one of my stronger suits. We've even got background dancers here on 104.5 The Zone if you're watching on Zone TV. We've also got Brandon Marcello of 247 Sports, who joins us now. Florida took a chance 4 years later, not quite 4 years later, blown up in their face, blowed up in a big way. Brandon, are you an ABBA fan before we begin?
Not really, no.
Oh! All right, that's fine. That fell flatter than I wanted it to. I still love you either way. Welcome to the show, by the way. This is the first time that we've had you. Did Florida make the right decision in letting Dan Mullen go after losing to Missouri over the weekend?
Yeah, they cut bait just when it, probably at a good time, because this thing was only going to go downhill a little bit further over the next year. Recruiting had really fallen off over the last year and a half. The locker room was a mess. And let's not forget Dan Mullen was dealing with that NCAA issue with recruiting previously. So, listen, it's not a good look necessarily from afar for Florida, because they just go through coaches like they're fast speed reading books, but they had to do it because things were just going south in a hurry.
Okay, so I think the best thing about Florida, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this, from our standpoint, the best thing about Florida is that they don't wait to rip the Band-Aid off, whereas Tennessee gets stuck, or at least in recent memory has gotten stuck in this 3-year cycle of hiring and firing coaches and letting things like Butch Jones or Jeremy Pruitt linger longer than need be. Is Florida's approach to getting rid of these guys, they shouldn't be making this many mistakes in the first place, but is the approach the correct one, as you've just articulated with Dan Mullen?
I think it is with Dan Mullen. Some would even argue that maybe they shouldn't have fired Jim McElwain at the time he did, because their recruiting was going very well, and Dan ended up winning with a lot of his players anyway. The Tennessee situation is a little bit different, just because that whole vicious cycle started because Lane Kiffin left after a year, and it just kind of put them in a bad situation where you felt like you had to give coaches a little bit more time, and then you probably didn't. You probably waited a little bit too long to make a change, just because you let Lane Kiffin kind of set the tempo, so to speak, of how to go about your own coaching searches and with your coaching tenures. So I think those two situations are a little bit different. Tennessee's issues probably really could be tracked back to Lane Kiffin skipping town so quickly. But, Florida, that's a job where, like any job in the SEC, you just got to recruit your tail off. And, Dan Mullen just wasn't that type of guy. He wasn't that type of coach to build a staff that really was relentless on the recruiting trail. And, the days of recruiting to your logo, those are over. You can't do that anymore. I don't care if you're even Alabama. You better have relentless recruiters who are out there in the homes, on the phone, in the ear of these recruits as many times as you can. And if not, you're going to be left out in the cold.
At B Marcello is where you can follow our guest, Brandon Marcello of 247 Sports, talking about the firing of Dan Mullen and the ripple effects across the SEC. I mean, people want to put Lane Kiffin in every job opening, whether it be LSU, whether it be Florida, USC would be just a full circle disaster, as I'm certain would be the case. But I don't know, and at least my observation from talking to people like yourself, Brandon, and we had Ryan McGee of ESPN who grew up with Lane Kiffin and is very close to him and seems to think that he's very happy where he is in Oxford. Does he need, much less want, one of these fishbowl jobs again?
Not necessarily, no. The funny thing, when you mention USC, I don't think they'll even sniff him. But, if he were to go back, listen, look at the stats. Couples who get divorced and then get back together, they stay together more often. So, hey, they could work out for Lane Kiffin for the second go-around marriage with USC. But, no, I don't know. I think it would you talk about legacy and everything. I think at some point you've got to kind of sit there and go, okay, I'm building something here at Ole Miss. I've got a pretty good situation. I probably ought to just wait this out instead of skipping town after a couple of years once again. And I'm not so sure Florida wants to take that we call it a risk or a chance, but he would be a little bit of a risk. You just got rid of a guy in Dan Mullen who was pretty arrogant and had thin skin, and that hurt him a lot. I mean, especially in press conference settings and, of course, behind the scenes, it just wasn't a good look. And you're getting Lane Kiffin in there who's a firecracker that you don't know, even after you light the fuse, whether it's going to go off or not. Not necessarily say he goes on rants or anything like that, but you just don't know what he's going to say or what he's going to do. And so I'm not so sure Florida would want to go down that route.
If there was I don't know if such a perfect candidate exists, but if Florida has their pick of what may be available this hiring cycle, what one name would you have Vols fans looking for to go to their greatest rival?
I mean, I think, listen, I think to me the best coach to go get that would fit Florida, and it's one that Florida fans would just go, no, I don't want that, but it's Billy Napier at Louisiana.
Okay.
He's a fantastic recruiter, has a fantastic staff, a Saban disciple, but has taken the Saban blueprint and adjusted it and has made it work in the Sun Belt with a much smaller budget, but with the biggest support staff in the Sun Belt. They get the number one recruiting class every year in that Sun Belt conference. They're competing for championships every single year. They're in the top 25 every single year these last 2 years. They've beaten Power 5 opponents. And he understands recruiting, and he's relentless with it. And that's what Florida needs. They need a relentless recruiter that's going to get after it on the field and off the field. And he's a fantastic coach. I'd go get him. I'd call him up, go, listen, we want you to be the guy. Will you take it? Don't try and go get a James Franklin or Lane Kiffin. Go get a guy like him. Or heck, another name that really pops up in my mind that isn't getting a lot of play right now is Texas A&M defensive coordinator Mike Elko. We did a poll at 24/7 Sports a week or two ago asking more than 100 assistant coaches and head coaches across the country, who are the hottest assistant coaches you believe should be head coaches right now? And Mike Elko was on that list and had some of the best superlatives from his colleagues in the industry. They believe he's a guy that not only gets on recruiting trouble with coaching, but is someone who's going to demand attention in that locker room and be a CEO type that they will respect and command attention. And I think there's a lot of names out there that aren't getting a lot of play right now just because they aren't the sexy names that would be great fits at places like Florida.
At B. Marcello is where you can follow Brandon Marcello. Of course, his work as a national college football reporter at 247 Sports. Brandon, thank you for the time. We appreciate you stopping by.
All right, thank you.
Why did I tell Brandon Marcello that I loved him anyway when that's the first time that we've spoken? Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know what to do after he just deadpanned me on ABBA.
The love from Scott from Bethpage and Will Compton, it's spreading.
That was really weird.
A lot of love on this show.
We'll see what kind of love Mike Vrabel's got for the media, because we're going to carry his press conference and take your phone calls coming up next. Welcome back. Final hour is upon us, and Mike Vrabel's been talking for about 5 minutes now. He's addressed the running back rotation and some of the interceptions, but we'll take you out to St. Thomas Sports Park live for the rest of his presser.
So the fact that we were in that game fighting, swinging, tells me a lot about our football team, our character. Nobody wants to be in that position. We have to do everything we can to avoid being in that type of position. But, proud of the effort. We just have to be better.
Mitchell came out. That you expected or you talked about last week, yesterday, it was just a lack of execution, or did that message maybe not get home as much as you hoped?
No, I mean, it's hard. It's you're never going to have or want false enthusiasm. I mean, you have to, to have the type of energy that's required. You have to go out there and create it. We've been down this road before. So when you stall on drives or you get stopped in short yardage, it doesn't matter how urgent you are. They converted short yardages. We didn't, and that's disappointing.
Did you expect the 12 straight games to be as physically challenging as it looks like it has been, or has this been maybe a little harder than you expected on some guys?
I mean, it's pro football, so we expect it to be tough and physical. We deal with the injuries as they come up, and we try to just get everybody prepared each week the best that we can. I don't know if I had any expectations on what that would look like.
With the opponent being on the road, that maybe help keep the focus on the task at hand with the bye looming ahead?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you go on the road to a team that's playing as well as the Patriots, I hope that we're all locked in, we're ready to go. We understand Thanksgiving is, going to be here, and we'll have a schedule that allows our players to enjoy some time, with their family. We're all thankful for things, but we have a lot to focus on here and get ready to prepare for, a team that's playing really well.
I know it's early in proper work, but what you've seen of them?
Yeah, they've created 13 turnovers in 5 games. Obviously they've won 5 games in a row. Number 1 scoring defense in the league. Offense has been very efficient. Number 6 scoring offense. They're not turning it over. They're not, doing things that beat themselves. And, obviously they've done a great job of taking advantage of bad football. Well coached. They're running the football. They're playing physical. So it'll be a huge challenge.
Challenges going against not just the Patriots, but just against Coach Belichick specifically. This will be your 3rd time facing them. But what's the challenge there?
Yeah, Bill and I won't be squaring off to determine this game. This game will be won like it always is with the players.
Well, are there any typical trademarks? Like he mentioned for you, trademarks are always very few mental errors, physical toughness, being prepared situationally. What can you respond to?
The same thing.
The same.
Just the same things I mentioned that they're doing well. They've, they're turning the football over. Guys understand where to create turnovers at, and they're good on the edges. The guys play with great technique up front. They're running the football, marrying that with the play action game. Receivers all block. They all block. They're all selfless. They all understand, that their effort is going to help. Whichever back they have in the game at that time run the football. The quarterback's accurate.
Is it still special getting in? I know you say you're not going against him, but obviously the relationship.
I think coaching in this league, I think being involved in the National Football League is special. I really do. I will never take what I do for granted. The opportunity to get to coach this football team, to get to travel to other stadiums. Certainly this one, having spent 8 years there, we've been through all that. We've handled that. We've touched on it. But, Tyler's going to be up to, it's like Tyler's going to be there. Tyler's going to school there. So, I think it'll be cool. But I think coaching in this league and playing in this league is special too.
A game with so many mistakes, like you said, how do you balance learning from it, but then also kind of wiping it away?
Well, we have to learn from it. We have to learn that, I mean, I think that's kind of rhetorical. I don't think they're, you turn the ball over as many times as you did, and you're careless with the football. Those are things that we preach every single day, and we didn't do a good enough job of handling the elements clearly. But we have to move on. We have to move on. We'll bring the guys in tomorrow afternoon. We'll start our preparation and find out who's available, find out who wants to go help us win, and then put a plan together.
Who's available as part of it, but at the receiver position, how tough a spot are you in, maybe from a depth standpoint, and who might be available?
Well, we'll figure out that maybe later on. We need a few days to kind of let the dust settle, and we'll see if there's guys here that can help us, or always guys that we could bring in from other places.
Are you basically trading Tuesday for Thursday in the practice week?
Yeah, the players would be off on Thursday.
Question. Yesterday in the rain, no hat, no anything, or just kind of just standing there taking it in. Will Compton wanted to know what war movie inspired you to stay in character like that?
No war movie. You guys should have Will come here and he can ask his own questions. Nah, we have to do a better job in the elements. We do, and it was unfortunate. We thought that, give David, give his staff, give the players credit. They on film didn't handle them very well in Buffalo the first time around, and I was hoping that we would. I hope that the way that we practiced and the different things that we try to do, that we could take care of the football, and we didn't, and that those make it too hard to win football games, and they handle the environment.
When you watch the tape again, what was happening up front on defense to allow Taylor so much free space to roam? And
No, there wasn't much free space. He went around the edge. He was faster than us. We came inside. So you saw that, Luke. You did. You knew that.
So no sacks also.
No, they threw their longest game was a jet sweep. Their longest pass play was a jet sweep. You watched the same game I did. Let's break it down defensively. Their longest game was a jet sweep. I thought we affected the quarterback. Unfortunately, we didn't contain him, and that's really what bothers you, because it doesn't make him earn it. And there you go with, he's maybe not, to his credit, didn't throw it into places where that we could take advantage of it and find a way to intercept the ball. They were low, or, we played off of them, and we didn't, those are things that I was frustrated with. We should have been up challenging, but, we didn't feel like the matchup at a particular place was great. I don't think we rushed them poorly, but again, the plays that they made, those were critical. The edges on the red zone, the first third down scramble. We could get off the field right there. That leads to a long drive. So that's what we had to do. We don't think we have to worry about the pass rush per se. It's just knowing who the quarterback is, knowing where we think he may be able to scramble, and doing a better job of containing him. That's one of the things that we talked about as a key, is making him earn everything, and we did for the most part, with the exception of a few penalties and that quarterback scramble.
Taylor touchdown. It looked like Molden may have been a guy who could have. But
yeah.
I know he's in man. Is he do you want him to?
Yeah, no. There's.
In there,
yeah, that's a fine line. Again, we try to incorporate those rush games, and having those guys make great decisions on, when they can come inside, when they can't, using great judgment, and then being able to identify guys that are matched in coverage who can trigger on the quarterback, and so. We'll keep showing those guys to say, hey, once you pass them off to somebody, we have to understand who the quarterback is, what his strengths are, and it'll be a new challenge this week, with what the Patriots do and what, the type of quarterback that Mac Jones is.
I know there are plenty of distractions that come with the bye week, but you, some ways, mentally get a boost knowing you've got, after this long stretch, you've got a break coming up, lay it on the line.
Yeah, I'm not looking past anything past right now. I hope our players aren't. I hope they're focused on getting healthy. no time to sit there and reflect or look ahead to the bye week and making mental preparation for what that'll be. We just have to focus on trying to win a football game, to improving, doing the things that we know win football games in this league, and going on the road and having a great challenge.
Was Ruffin called wrong? And did you hear that Fisher spent the first couple seconds of his acceptance speech calling out the refs on that? He's talking about grounding. Grounding.
Yeah, the intentional grounding.
Nah, I mean, it looked like he, I don't think there was a receiver in the area. I don't know if he was out of the pocket or not. That's not for me to decide. We all have to be better. The playing in this league, especially as it relates to the Titans, has to be better, and the coaching and then the officiating. It all does. Those are the three facets of the game. I can focus on two of those.
That's Mike Vrabel. He's going to keep talking. I didn't need anything after Teron was asking him Will Compton questions that Will tweeted us. Unbelievable. We'll come back. We'll take your phone calls. We'll play you the most important clips from that press conference because I think there was some really good stuff on Tyrod Taylor's 2 touchdown runs where he was able to break contain and why the pass rush wasn't getting home. Your phone calls as well. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. I mean, not like we didn't already know this, but Will Compton's an idiot. I feel like I just have to say that out loud. He's tweeting me and Teron and Jim Wyatt. We need to ask Mike Vrabel. I'll read you the exact tweet. I can't believe Teron. I mean, I can believe Teron asked the question. It's just so stupid. Will Compton has tweeted us, I need someone in the media to ask Vrabes why he chose to never wipe his face all game while getting rained on, and which war movie inspired him to stay in character. Teron did it, and Mike gave like a serious answer afterwards. A complete... And I think Lucas, in fact, has the answer from Mike Vrabel that will fade down as it gets into actual, like, serious coach speak that he tried to do. No, Mike. We're on to you.
No war movie. You guys should have Will come here and he can ask his own questions. We have to do a better job in the elements.
Oh, should we just get that's all you want to give him? Will's not allowed to go to the press conferences because Will is a Barstool. I don't know if he's an employee because technically Barstool Sports franchises Bussin' with the Boys. They don't own the podcast, but the NFL hates Barstool. They don't credential Barstool for NFL events. Like Barstool can't go to the Super Bowl. That's why they're interviewing Mike Vrabel at the Super Bowl in Houston at like a trailer, a mobile home that they've brought outside of the stadium where they're parked outside of Super Bowl Radio Row. So Will Compton cannot be a credentialed media member. We will have him, of course, on Wednesday. It's a short week, by the way, because of Thanksgiving. For us, at least. And, well, not really, because I'm still going to be going to practice and all of that throughout the course of the week. But, yes, Mike Vrabel, no towel, no hat, just out there in the rain, letting all of the L's wash over him. We'll actually hear from Mike again here in just a second because I thought his answers on why the defense wasn't able to get a pass rush yesterday was really, really telling. But let's go to Darrington, who's up next on 104.5 The Zone. All right, what you got for him?
What's going on, Bucky? How you doing today?
I'm great, bud.
Good. You know what? I'm not going to blame Ryan Tannehill for playing with the JV squad in the second half. And I'm not going to blame him for looking like Baker Mayfield in the first half.
Oof.
I've been saying this for the last 2 years. Nobody wanted to listen to me. I just want to know when the verge of Dennis Green, when people are going to realize they are who we thought they were. Y'all wanted to go ahead and crown them champions, crown them. But what have they won? I'm just saying, Buck. I mean, you have simply been saying the obvious for the last 3 weeks. Where is the stagnant offense going to change? Now, for the first half, A.J. Brown was out there. The other guy that hurt his hamstring, he was out there. You know, the one everybody wanted to get rid of. He was out there. They didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing last week. So eventually, people have to realize at the beginning of the season, offense carried the defense. For a moment, the defense was carrying the offense. Now everything is starting to be equal. I've been telling people Ryan Tannehill was going to turn back into Ryan Tannehill. And don't worry, Lucas, I will fade myself out. Have a good one, guys.
He's a pro. He's just a pro. He's the villain of the show.
Knows what he's doing.
Now, Baker Mayfield, I love that he's got good cadence too. God bless him for that. That's ladies and gentlemen, that is what it takes to be a good caller on this show. Not Rob telling you that you should start Logan Woodside for that game. Rob, man, I'm still pissed at you about that. And apparently he called J. Martin Ramon this morning and said the exact same thing.
No, it's worse. It's not you should start Logan Woodside. It's you're probably not going to win the game, so you should bench your starting quarterback.
Oh, good. Thank you. Didn't Rob call you back and was a little bit frazzled that I didn't let him finish his point? I did that, Rob, because your point stunk, and I love you. You can call back anytime, but if your point stinks, we're going to tell you that. 615-737-1045. So what Mike Vrabel said about the pass rush yesterday, is interesting, and we'll get to Mike here in just a second, but I want you to hear from Big Jeff first, because what Simmons was saying about Tyrod Taylor in the postgame media availability at the podium with us last night, I thought was pretty interesting. I read you off the pressure stats. Of course, the Titans in that 6-game winning streak had been able to get as many sacks, 19, as they did all of last season in that 6-game stretch. Yesterday, no sacks, very, very little pressure. It's not because the defense wasn't playing well. It's because David Culley just like the Dolphins against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens a couple of weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. They put together a game plan that said, nah, you're not getting to our quarterback today. Here was Big Jeff last night.
It wasn't nothing more than to it. The first one, we gotta we gotta communicate. I think it was me and Nico to that side, and I'm a 3. He on the edge. If he thinking about doing something, if I'm thinking about doing something before the snap, we just have to communicate. So once we see film, we'll make the correction. Like I said, but we just got to be better up front because, like I said, when the quarterback scramble, the rush lanes is on us. So if it's the edge guy, the inside guy, we all got to be on the same page.
That's Jeff Simmons last night talking about why the Titans weren't able to get a pass rush. And so my friend and beloved colleague Luke Worsham at A to Z Sports, he asked Mike. Now, I think Luke's got to understand that it was clear and obvious that they weren't putting Tyrod Taylor in a position to get sacked based off the game plan. Maybe he did, and he just wanted to ask Mike anyway to get Mike on record about it. And all Vrabel did was rough him up a little bit.
No, there wasn't much free. He went around the edge. He was faster than us. We came inside. So you saw that, Luke. You did. You know what I mean? Like, you knew that.
So no sacks also. I mean,
No, they threw – their longest game was a jet sweep. Their longest pass play was a jet sweep. I mean, so you watched the same game I did. Let's break it down defensively. Their longest game was a jet sweep. I thought we affected the quarterback. Unfortunately, we didn't contain him. And that's really what bothers you because it doesn't make him earn it. And there you go with, he's maybe not, to his credit, didn't throw it into places where that we could take advantage of it and find a way to intercept the ball. They were low or, we played off of them and we didn't, those are things that I was frustrated with. We should have been up challenging, but, we didn't feel like the matchup at a particular place was great. I don't think we rushed them poorly, but again, the plays that they made, those were critical. The edges on the red zone, the first third down scramble. We could get off the field right there. That leads to a long drive. So that's what we had to do. We don't think we have to worry about the pass rush per se. It's just knowing who the quarterback is, knowing where we think he may be able to scramble, and doing a better job of containing him. That's one of the things that we talked about as a key is making him earn everything, and we did for the most part, with the exception of a few penalties and that quarterback scramble.
So the Texans figured out a way to negate the Titans' pass rush, which is the best thing that they've done, really, outside of Derrick Henry this season. It's pretty interesting to note. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Jerry in White Bluff, who's been waiting very patiently. Hello, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm waiting very patiently. How you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy.
That's great. There you go. I want to just give just about 10 seconds here, 15 seconds of my time here,
Sure.
Back to the college thing. I don't know why John Gruden wouldn't mention the Las Vegas Raiders, because he's always thrown that in the mix of all that. But that's neither here nor there. But I want to congratulate Tennessee on being eligible for a bowl game and Vanderbilt on a bowl game. I know you're thinking right now, Vanderbilt on a bowl. Well, Tennessee is their bowl game every year, so I've got that covered, okay?
Look at you, Jerry.
All right, well, number 3, Mr. Buck, is off Tannehill, and you've been riding him all morning. I want to tell you, Tannehill, yeah, he had several turnovers. I'll tell you what, though. He had A.J. Brown go down with the first play. Mm-hmm. He had his second receiver that was their second-place receiver. See him limping in the end zone with a hamstring being pulled.
Yeah.
Well, he has reserves coming in. Well, naturally, they're not going to know the stops and goes and different ins and outs, and all of a sudden, it's all Tannehill. But I tell you, it's a team thing. It's not just one player. So one player didn't lose that game for the Titans. The whole team lost that game for the Titans. They should have knew the second, people that come in there all knew what to do, like the first thing does, and they didn't. You can see Tannehill's Saxon was shaking his head on a lot of plays, which a lot of quarterbacks do that, after interception, but even the announcers said, you know what? Said that right there wasn't on Tannehill, so that receiver kept running downfield and didn't turn around. Julio or any of those, and I'm not making excuses for Tannehill. Don't get me wrong. Tannehill did play crappy, but I think he played with what he had, and that's all he could do is play with what he had.
I think that's all completely fair. And you go ahead and give Jerry a quick buzz there. Look at him throwing shade at Vandy. Thanks for the call, Jerry. I love that he waited an hour on the phone just to take a shot at Vandy.
He executed it.
Oh, no, he was great. He was great. Listen, I mean, and I don't know how much of today's show or any of the last week's show Jerry listened to. You guys know that I am more inclined to give Tannehill the benefit of the doubt, right? In that, I think that's the way that I basically opened the show today. He sucked yesterday against the Texans. It doesn't mean that it was all his fault, nor does it mean that Ryan Tannehill's 2021 season as the Titans starting quarterback is a complete wash. Of course, that's not the case at all. Now, if you're looking for the greatest issues that the Titans had, it was certainly with turnovers, and the player who had 4 of them, whether all of them were on him or not, is going to shoulder the majority of the blame today. The Texans had a good game plan to keep them in it in the first half. It fell apart when the defense held them to 6 straight 3-and-outs on their final possessions. On their last 6 possessions, they were all 3-and-outs because the Titans defense played well, figured it out the way that they were not able to get pressure but able to stop what the Texans were trying to do. And also Tyrod kept throwing passes at like the ankles of his receivers. I don't know why the balls kept skipping the way that they did, but there's a lot of problems there. Now, something else that Mike Vrabel said before we go back to the phone lines was about Tyrod Taylor's second touchdown run, where Joe Rexrode, I believe, is asking him the question. Elijah Molden has a chance to make a play on that. He doesn't, and Mike Vrabel kind of expands on why not.
Could have,
but
yeah.
I know he's in man. Is he do you want him to?
Yeah, no, there's,
in there,
yeah, that's a fine line. Again, we try to incorporate those rush games, and having those guys make great decisions on, when they can come inside, when they can't, using great judgment, and then being able to identify guys that are matched in coverage who can trigger on the quarterback. And so, we'll keep showing those guys to say, hey, once you pass them off to somebody, we have to understand who the quarterback is, what his strengths are, and it'll be a new challenge this week, with what the Patriots do and what, the type of quarterback that Mac Jones is.
So that kind of comes into that. Remember Shane Bowen, I think it was last week, talking about, was it last week or after the Rams? After the Rams game, where Shane Bowen is talking about professional initiative on the Kevin Byard pick 6 of Stafford. And so Elijah Molden, what Vrabel is saying there is, it's a fine line between, that professional initiative that we're talking about and making sure that you're sticking with your assignment. Elijah Molden, as a rookie, maybe he feels confident enough to take that initiative, but doesn't want to work so far outside of the scope of what he's being asked to do that it could cause detrimental plays, right? Because the margin for error is so thin. And Elijah Molden, who played, he was one of the brighter spots of yesterday's game, right? I thought Molden made a lot of good plays in trying to keep the Titans in that game against the Texans. But there is a fine line, especially if you're a rookie, between playmaking and professional initiative and, potentially missing an assignment and getting burned as a result. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Alex in Nashville up next. What's up, Alex?
Hey, what's up, Buck? Got 2 quick points and a quick question for you. One, it's Darrington and everybody else who's got sore Twitter fingers because they've been all over about, I've been telling you on Tannehill's this, Tannehill's that. Like, who put Tannehill as like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? Like,
Alex, hang on before you make it. He did. He not by his words, but by his play, he has been that.
Statistically, absolutely. And you parlayed, you kind of talked on a point that one of my points. Tannehill and everybody, yourself included, has basically said he is a top 10 to 12-ish type quarterback, right? Yes. Above average, not a top 5, not to put his game on the back and go get it. So that point is if you were a slightly above average player at any position, especially quarterback, for you to play at a high level, basically exceed your ranking, for lack of a better term or whatever, play better than your position, you need more either top 3, top 5, or everybody around you needs to be slightly above average. That didn't happen this weekend. So, therefore, unfortunately, Tannehill got exposed a little bit. Tannehill's a good quarterback. He can, with this team and this system, if we have more pieces together, he can take this team to the promised land. It's good enough to win. He just can't do it by himself, and that's been beat to a dead horse. The question I have for you, Buck, is the offensive line played a lot better this weekend.
I thought they were great yesterday.
They were. Do you think, because they weren't great, way better than they've been the last few weeks, was that unexpected and kind of maybe threw some of the play calls off, or were a lot of the game plan and play calls maybe expecting for the front five to be a little bit of a liability, and when they weren't a liability, we didn't have play calls. Tannehill didn't really step up in the pocket. A lot of it, when she probably should have more, a lot of the throws were on the run or kind of designed that kind of way. We didn't really take shots downfield. Again, was that with the expectation that the offensive line wasn't going to be able to protect that long, and then it was a surprise?
Well, let me stop you because you're going, and thank you for the call, Alex. I think it's a good question. And 615-737-1045. I mean, this notion that they're not throwing the ball down the field is incorrect. They're not completing those passes. Now, whether that's because A.J. Brown has been covered up or A.J. Brown dealing with some drops or, you can't rely consistently. I mean, they had deep passing plays yesterday. Now, some of it's catch and run like NWI or Marcus Johnson the week before, but it's not like they haven't been throwing the ball. Now, what I think his point is interesting about, were they not expecting the offensive line to be as good as they played yesterday? And by the way, the quarterback has adjusted the way that he plays because the offensive line has not been that good. He's been getting rid of the ball a lot quicker than he has in the last couple of years. But, I mean, unexpected, they expect those 5 guys, whomever they are, to be able to block for Ryan Tannehill each and every week. They are instituting some of the stuff in their game plan. It's why the screen game is a big part of what you do now, to get those offensive linemen out on the move and not rely on them to have to hold up in pass protection too long. And also, you don't play Ryan Tannehill as a Matt Stafford. You don't drop him back like just pure drop back quarterback play all that often. It's just not something that the game plan yesterday was designed to beat the Texans team. And frankly, it moved the ball well down the field. The interceptions and the fumbles and the issue with Chester Rogers on the punt return, that ultimately nuked your game. But the game plan, even as Todd Downing's first down play calling drives me insane, it wasn't that bad because they were better on third down. They had 420 yards of offense. They haven't done that in quite some time. They were doing things well. It's just the mistakes that they made, nuked them in a massive way. We'll wrap up the show. We'll take a few more calls before we get out of here. We'll do some polls. That's next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. I don't think you like what you got yesterday at Nissan Stadium, but that's all right. I think we've tried to work our way through the majority of the crap that took place between the Titans and the Texans yesterday. And tomorrow it is, in fact, on to New England, both in spirit and in actuality. Of course, I'll be traveling up there on Saturday. The travel plans for me, Lucas, are going to get kind of complicated. Wednesday is going to be the last time you see me for like 14 days, which has got to be a tremendous feeling for you. Schaefer,
nice.
I thought it was double middle fingers at first. It was double thumbs up, but very good. Yeah, so we'll have a little break from one another. I don't know who is going to be me while I'm gone. I'm not gone until the Titans bye week, until like Tuesday through Friday of the bye week, but who is me while I'm gone? Do we know?
I know for 2 days, Will Bowling will be hanging out with our friend Austin Stanley. And another day will be with Kayla Anderson. And then it will be myself and Will Bowling on that Thursday and Friday.
Now, perhaps I'm undermining plans that have already been set, but why aren't you me while I'm gone?
Because I am off on those days.
Oh, okay. Well, that's makes
taking full advantage.
Very good. All right. You deserve it. Let's squeeze a few more in here before we wrap things up with the polls. Let's go to Andrew and Mount Juliet up next. What's up, Andrew?
Yes.
Hey, you got us?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to tell Titans fans, let's remember where we were 6 years ago in the 8-8 purgatory. I used to listen to people driving on the rides home saying Jeff Fisher bit a out of every room that was 8-8. And I think that if you get too hyped up about things, you forget the past. And I mean, we've been to the playoffs the past 2 years. We're leading the division. I think people tend to forget how much the division was owned by other teams, while we were trying to figure it out.
No, I think it's a great point, Andrew. I mean, listen, context is not what sports talk radio is for, nor is nuance, which is why we do so well with it, because we have neither context nor nuance. But I think more than anything, people are it's instant reaction. And yeah, you're going to be pissy about losing to the Texans until tomorrow when we start talking about Mac Jones and the New England Patriots, and then it's on to Cincinnati, except it's on to New England instead. Let's do some polls.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update, and he's a good boy. Buck Reising Show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
What was the worst thing the Titans did yesterday? Gary says predictable play calling. Tyler says got away from the play action.
Yeah, I think getting A.J. Brown, they didn't get A.J. Brown and Marcus Johnson and T.R. Tartt and Chris Jackson and every other player that left. Jalen Brown at the end left with an injury. The injuries are the worst thing that happens to the Titans yesterday, and the injury report continues to be the biggest issue, although rap sheet positive news on AJ, as we told you earlier in the show.
Big Joe on the Go says it's the fact that they drove to the stadium, and Puka said the good Ryan Tannehill was kidnapped by Mirror Universe bad Tannehill. Titans lost because they couldn't detect this.
And also he was betrayed by Des Fitzpatrick after Tannehill gave Des Fitzpatrick his first career touchdown.
Which loss felt worse? 78% say the Texans over 22% that say the Jets.
I think it's the Jets. I really think it's the Jets.
Still had Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I think all of the things that have happened against the Texans, I think they feel gross. They look gross. It was an awful watch. I miss Derrick Henry, not because I'm a Titans fan, but because I miss watching Derrick Henry make actual plays instead of constipated offense. And I can't tell you how excited I was to see Adrian Peterson move with basically a walker for 16 yards and get the whole stadium on their feet.
Who's going to play wide receiver against the Patriots? Our buddy Mike Herndon says, I'm tall, I can catch, and I will fight back underneath the defender rather than leaving my quarterback out to dry.
Shots at Dez.
Hope a 6'3", 40 time is not a problem. Bird has a picture of the Three Stooges. Bucket says, me. Goody says, can we roll you out there as a thick slot receiver?
No, you cannot, but only because you called me thick on the front end.
Who should be number one on Florida's list? James Brown with a gif of Urban Meyer. Puka says Bill Belichick. Goody says someone who will cause as much chaos as possible. Mahogany says whoever Coastal Carolina's coach is, being Jamie Chadwell. Robert says Rich Rod.
How about Todd Downing? Am I being Todd? No, I'm kidding. Let me not troll.
Is he a relentless recruiter?
Oh, I mean, anybody could be better than Dan Mullen, it sounds like.
And John Hughes says Ron Zook, hearkening back to the old days of the Florida Gators.
Those the polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, very good. You told me we had less time. I panicked. I thought we had to, rattle through them. I would have given more informed responses.
Got a minute.
Well, we do have a minute.
You got any informed opinions you want to give?
Only that I went to my first Friendsgiving.
51 seconds.
You really going to do that to me right now? I went to my first Friendsgiving ever. It was at Lucas Panzica's house, and I will have observations about the Friendsgiving at Lucas Panzica's house tomorrow. How about that for a radio tease? You'll get no more and you'll like it because Blaine and Mickey are up next.